Welcome to this week's Techniques in 2 Minutes video. This one is on the concept of camera, or as some of you are probably far more comfortable and familiar with, it's a simple, quote unquote, simple subject of setting. So, when I think of the reason I like to think of this as camera rather than setting necessarily is because, from a craft perspective, yes, we've all heard of setting, that there are locations and places that we want to make vivid in our work. But what I'm particularly going to talk about here is this idea that we zoom in and out throughout a piece of creative writing when it comes to our sense of setting and how close up and far out we get. So when we use different camera lenses, so to speak, with setting, that creates for readers a lush, thorough picture. So we have what I call, and I'm going to use some sort of movie making concepts here. We've got the wide panoramic camera lens, the medium camera lens, and the close-up camera lens. Okay, so these are exactly what they sound like. And when you think about the things that you see in movies, imagine the opening shots of films, maybe even TV shows, that provide a broad landscape, sort of where we move over houses, treetops, businesses, parks. We get to see the hills, mountains, and rivers that make up a place, the lakes, the ocean. So we get this larger sense of the bigger world that we're in. And these are the things that show us that larger world in which a story is taking place. And then when we get to the middle lens, what the comparison that I like to make there is when you think of like the interior shot of a particular location, of a specific place, or when you have two characters that are in dialogue with each other and you see both of them on screen, whether it's each from the side or maybe, one character over the shoulder of another, where the camera keeps going back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the one that gives us, similarly to the first one, a sense of a particular place, but when I say particular place, a more specific location within that described larger world, or a specific person or a couple of people, though not with the kind of deep intimacy that we will get from our close-up. This is where we get that sort of single character shot or the zoom into particular objects on screen. And this is when we give precise description or focus to a person, a place, or a thing. One way that you can do an intellectual exercise here is if you want to think about like the camera, you can take a piece of paper and kind of roll it up widely so that you can cover both of your eyes with it, surround both of your eyes with it, and you can scan a room and you can still see a large part of the room. If you tighten that so you can only see through one eye, but largely, you get a sharper image of particular things. You're not looking at the whole place anymore, but you can still see several things. And then if you really squinch your rolled up piece of paper really tight, you're going to only be able to focus in on very, very specific things. So we're talking about getting more particular versus more wide angle lens. And then also, so one last thing I forgot here is that when we're using the close-up, when we go into their headspace, when we get their thoughts and their particular feelings, we're also using that close-up angle. But the real thing here is that there's no precise formula for how much of each level of zoom you want to use in a piece of writing. It doesn't need to be, okay, 33% of my description is wide angle lens, 33% is medium, and 33% is close-up. But the idea is that you want to use variety. You want to attempt to use all three at some point, just to give that textural variety that readers are probably really going to be yearning for. But again, it doesn't need to be a perfect balance of all three. As with so many things in writing, as we've probably talked about in this course, there's no specific correct answer. And so what it's going to take is experimentation, tinkering, revising, exploring to help you discover how much of each one you want. What I always like to tell people is toss in more and more of each level in your early drafting, and then you will find by the time you get through revision what things you can let go of and what things you should keep and what that ideal balance will be. So that's just a few things on using your camera.